When I was about 9, I started a DeviantArt account. I know that I was 9 because my mom told me to take my age off of my profile, probably for good reason. By this age, I knew about 3 things for sure. 1, I liked to draw. 2, I liked Pokemon. And 3, I had been using a computer for about 7 full years. My mother was an IT nerd and she had enrolled me into a computer class, and I had actually gotten a free computer. And before that, we already had our own family computer, so all I had to do was get up, hook up the dial-up, because I knew how to do that as a little baby, and I fucking did that shit. I've always been a drawer growing up, and as far as I can remember, I started earnestly drawing partially thanks to art classes that I had taken in grade school, and partly because of the internet. Specifically a person who now is a general furry artist, but back in the day they created this character that was basically a Pikachu that was a part of Team Rocket. It was called Rocketchu. I believe that they released that design for general use a few years ago, simply because of how beloved it was to a certain subset of the Pokemon fandom. I was personally inspired by them to draw my very own OCs, which were essentially sparkle dogs that slightly resembled a couple of real Pokemon that were also, of course, working for Team Rocket. I'd call it a creative disaster if I didn't remember thinking that it was baller as hell. Sometime soon after that, I was exposed to YouTube, Naruto, and Quizilla. And if you aren't familiar with Quizilla, it was a quiz site that was hosted by Nickelodeon, and it was marketed and roped under the Team Nick brand. It was really a place that was just chock full of choose your own path kind of style fan fiction, basically wrapped up in this guise of a quiz. And at the end of one of these quizzes, it would have, of course, a self-insert fan fiction, usually of dubious quality and even more dubious appropriateness for a person around the ages of 9, 10, or 11. But the true treasure that I had found in this site was the concept of recoloring anime girls that I found on Google in MS Paint. And this, in tandem with my love of Pokemon, spurred me to basically pursue another very specific subset of the Pokemon fandom, which was the Fusion Sprites creators. I don't know how big they are still on DeviantArt, but back in the day, it was kind of they were making some of the sweetest little pixel sprites using MS Paint, of course, because it came pre-installed on every computer. It was great. And then when I was around 12, I told my mother that I wanted to design video games. My mother was highly suspicious, and as I said, she was an IT specialist, and my grandfather before her was an engineer. So there wasn't much room in her mind for me to take care of myself using art. But thankfully for me, she was also a highly pragmatic kind of person, and even reasonable as far as parents go. All she asked me for was proof in the form of a 2-page essay that I could make money doing art. And I was able to basically turn around and go to the internet like I had for years at this point and utilize my freshly burgeoning new little 12-year-old research skills. And I looked up how much money a game designer could make, including a source list. I must have been very convincing, because the summer of my 12th year on God's green earth, my mother somehow got me into an art program that had a minimum age of 13. I was really ecstatic to be there. I felt so responsible. I felt so taken seriously. It was the first time I can remember feeling like a whole human that was worth more than, passing grades and assigned planners. One of the first assignments I had to do at this art camp was something called a master copy. I chose to replicate a headshot of Lao Kun and his sons, I was instructed on how to use pieces of string and pencils to make a near copy of a previously made piece of art on some of the nicest paper I had ever felt up until that point. And some part of my very young brain felt vindicated completely. It wasn't easy, but I had committed myself to using the tools and techniques I was given, and I did it. I had successfully stole from the ancient Greece. Replication, emulation, inspiration. Copying, tracing, studying. The line between these things is fuzzy and arbitrary in many ways, but I think artists should really leave room in their moral compass for play. Even the biggest creative properties know that allowing fan works to persist makes good business sense, as letting fans be creative with your own work is just free word-of-mouth advertising. And what makes art valuable is a combination of the things that are copied with the things which are part of the second artist's creative stylings. It's a natural form of collaboration. This idea feeds my earnest belief that the fear of copycats is unfounded. It's especially easy to become paranoid and overly vigilant about what is copying, and every artist must confront the possibility of someone maliciously stealing your ideas. If you've ever heard of pose stealing or seen a kerfuffle over color palettes or even seen certain accusations of design thefts that are really just coincidences or otherwise based in cliché or tropes, you've encountered the fear of theft running in the wild. After all, a trope is a pre-made template to which we form a character. Even the most original character will display trope influences unless a person has never consumed any narrative media prior to the character's creation. And that, of course, would include basically all art. Paintings have narratives, music has a narrative, clothing, cartoons, sitcoms. Literally every facet of our media consumption puts certain ideas into our brains, consciously or otherwise. So the idea that anyone's idea is original is denying the reality that there are no new ideas, only remixes and slight adjustments to make things fit either our or our audience's personal tastes, always inspired by some event that truly happened to or around us in the past. The originality comes from what each person has experienced, which is unique. On the one hand, these are the most benevolent examples of copies that I'm talking about. A master copy is a study, a literal, studious process to learn from a master. When you attempt to replicate or remix something from a master, you build your skills as an artist because replication is its own skill. See art restoration videos. In these situations, we haven't profited other than in knowledge and a deep understanding of what kinds of methods a master might have employed to create their art, which you can also adopt. It's simply efficient that way. A malevolent copy, then, would be a true theft of labor. When I was a 10-year-old recoloring anime girls and using it as a reference for my OC at the top of a fanfiction, I was not malevolently stealing any work, or even taking any of their audiences. That's objective. Every anime studio is more successful than a child online, and that child is not going to cut into profits with their rudimentary recolors, which are hidden only on the depths of fandom internet. But when, say, a larger artist is discovered tracing their commissions while charging original art prices in a public forum, something has been certifiably stolen. The original artist's labor. Drawing techniques are not usually copyrightable, but individual art pieces are as intellectual property. If the work is not transformative in a meaningful way, then the copier were to profit off of that, or try to pass it off as their own, that's art theft. Another aspect of art theft is art fraud, that is, misrepresenting the origin of an art piece. That's an inherently dishonest process, and the loser more often is the purchaser of the work, who now owns something that is not exactly what they were promised, being original art from the commissioned artist. The line between what is a bad copy and what is a good copy is often subjective. It's based on context. It differs from artist to artist. It differs from place to place. copying is a method of learning. Copying is also a method for fraud. These are the complexities of being an artist. But then in some ways, I think the emphasis in art communities on the risk of theft isolates artists more than it helps them. I can tell you that being told to be suspicious of other artists at a young age did not serve me. When I later arrived at college and all my professors were pitting students against each other, I knew that it was better to go my own way, even if I didn't understand why at the time. I had been constantly told to trust no one, to be a self-sustaining island on my own, but I just didn't have the energy for it. I really was quite afraid at the time, like I was failing myself and my own dreams and drifting away. But now I find myself more comfortable with myself. It's so much more comfortable not to be caught mentally in a competitive hamster wheel. But even still, in some ways, I am haunted. It can be a struggle sometimes to feel comfortable expressing myself fully. I can admit to being an egoist, to being too prideful to tell my friends about ideas I have, too afraid to fail, as if there were something to fail at. My ideas could be something worth copying or worth judging, sure, but sometimes I wonder if I'm just holding on to someone else's anxieties, despite how hard I try to shake them off. The internet's anxieties, the world's anxieties, my teacher's anxieties, the anxieties my brain just invents. Sometimes I wonder if it's just because I'm an Aquarius moon. It is said that it takes 10,000 hours to become a master. At 2 hours a day, that's 13 years of practice. As a person who is 11 years into being an artist and has spent way more than just 2 hours a day on art, I'm happy to report that I've never stopped copying. When I look at a still life, I copy it onto paper, through my brains and my eyes, and out of my hand. I know how to copy it so well because each and every time I ever traced something. Sometimes that was anime, sometimes it was other people, sometimes it was their art. But in either case, I was better for it because I was a happier and more capable artist at the end of it. When I don't know what to do, I can look at how another person might do it and appreciate and incorporate their methods as I see fit, and never have I stolen from them. Simultaneously, I have to be aware of what is and isn't mine, even as I adopt things from others. I can focus my eyes and see what I have been given, and if I so need to, eliminate it. Oh hey, if you made it this far, why not like and subscribe? One part of me is the part that digs deeply. I like to know things, specific things. I've never felt more achieved than when I've dissected something enough to put it together again. To endlessly investigate a puzzle is to taste bliss. This is the authoritarian, the being of fear. I look and I look, gathering information until I feel comfortable enough. I gather intel because knowing where the danger is will free you. I run towards information that seems useful to me. Sometimes the information chases me, but I'm not that fun to chase. I'm not a runner. Anyone can see the authoritarian in me. Everyone can see it. They fear and respect it, or at least they feel comfortable enough not to worry about it. It's not social in the least, though it longs to be understood just as it understands. But then there's a second part, one that I cannot see, but I can feel. It makes mistakes, it stumbles, it runs into walls, and it's dramatic. It likes to suffer about things. Its self-flagellation is bottomless like a well. It's suffering, woe is me, because it's punished for its mistakes instead of celebrated. It's understandable. Most people don't like mistakes. Making mistakes makes them uncomfortable. Breaking things right in front of people makes them squirm. If I were to break an idea that they care about, I could even break their identities. If I break the right thing, they might not know what was true anymore. That's the beauty of being able to find and make a mistake. If I find it, I get to tell everybody about what didn't work, and absolutely nothing has been lost.
and absolutely nothing has been lost.
And absolutely nothing has been lost.